Hey, how you doing? Dennis here, and today we're going to be checking out material design input fields in Figma. We'll be making these fields with this small animation and make it to where you can input from your keyboard using variables. And let's get started. Starting with the label, type T on your keyboard for the text tool, click somewhere on the page and type label. We're going to use Roboto Flex regular 16/24. Shift A for auto layout. Put 15 padding on the top and bottom and the sides and align it to the left. Go ahead and make the width 236. You can make it any width you like, but that's a good one to start with. And we're going to give it a white fill. Grab the text and fill it with 626262. Select your frame and round the top corners to 4. Now we're going to give it a border on the bottom. We're going to fill that border with 8E, 8E, 8E. And we're going to call this frame default. Now we're going to duplicate. We're going to call this one hover. We're going to fill it with EC, EC, EC. Give it a little bit of a shade of gray. And we're going to change the border color to 1F, 1F, 1F. Now we're going to duplicate. We're going to call this input. We're going to remove the auto layout and we're going to change the label to 11/17. Change that text color to 6221EA, which will be purple. We're going to take the border. We're going to make it the same color and we're going to increase it to 2. Let's grab our label. Let's move it to 15 and 6. Type T on your keyboard to add some new text. Let's make that text 17/19 and let's color it black, all zeros. And let's place that into our frame. And let's place that at 15 and 24. Now before we continue, let's create our flashing cursor. So type the F on your keyboard for the frame tool and draw a frame. Let's make the frame 1/19 and let's fill it with the same color that we were using for our purple text. We'll go ahead and duplicate that frame. The second frame, let's set the opacity down to 0. Now let's name the first frame Show, the second frame Hide. Let's create a component set. Now switch to Prototype and we're going to connect one frame to the other. We're going to set it to after delay of 600 milliseconds, instant. Then on the other one, do the same thing in reverse. And this will serve as our flashing cursor. Okay, now that we have our flashing cursor, let's Option drag an instance out. Let's add it to our input field. Let's grab the cursor and our text. Shift A for auto layout. Let's set the space between to 1 and do a center left aligned. Now let's Option drag to duplicate that. Let's call it value. Let's change the border back to 1 and let's change its color back to the 626262 from before. and let's make the label match that color. And then we need the entire frame color to return to F5, F5, F5 from before. Actually, I think I left that white, so our first frame color up here should also be the F5, F5, F5 to match. There we have it. Now let's set up our variables. So in design mode with nothing selected, in the right panel you can access variables here. We're going to create two string variables, one called username and one called password. And we're going to name the collection keyboard. And we're just going to put a blank space in the variable value. And we're set. Now let's apply those variables to our input fields. Select the text in the input field. In the text palette, select the variable icon and choose username. Now do the same to the value field. Password will come into play later. And since the value field is the committed data that we're inputting, we're going to hide the cursor. Select them all, create a component set, and let's call it input fields. Now it's time to connect all of our input fields. So switch to prototype. Let's grab the default frame and connect it to the hover frame. Select while hovering. Do a dissolve. Ease in and out at 300 milliseconds. Let's drag a second one to the input field. We're going to select key gamepad. We're going to select the tab key. We're going to do smart animate, ease in and out at 300. Now from the input frame, let's go back to the original default frame. Keypad, let's use the escape key. Smart animate, ease in and out 300 as well. Okay, so now on the hover frame, we want to connect to the input frame. On a click, smart animate, ease in and out 300. From the third frame to the value frame, we want to select key gamepad, the enter key. We're going to select dissolve, ease in and out 300. And finally, this one we will connect back to the input frame. On click, dissolve, ease in and out 300. And then we're going to do a second interaction. That's going to be the gamepad. We're going to select the tab key and we're going to dissolve, ease in and out 300. This next step is a little involved. I didn't think everyone wanted to watch me set all of these variables, but here's what I've done. On the input field, I have added an interaction for all the keys on the keyboard that I want to use. You don't have to set every single key on the keyboard, just the ones that you want to use in your prototype. But you want to set the key and gamepad, and then you can type in the letter you want to assign this variable to. So right now I'm setting the A key, or the Shift A key for the capital A, the B key, or the Shift B, and I think you can even do Option B for special characters. So getting in here and showing you how these are set up, so you want to set the variable to actually set the username, and you're going to set the username to be the username plus A. The reason you set it up this way is so whatever character you typed before, it will add the next character behind it. So you're setting the variable username to that variable plus the next character you type. And you do that for every character that you want to use. Now also, don't forget to set the space bar with quotes with a space in between them. And if you want to use an email address as someone's username, be sure to set up Shift 2 with the @ sign. So that's what this little panel here is showing. I've set Shift 2 to be the username to the set username value plus the @ sign. So let's test our options. Grab a frame. Let's drag an instance of our component into this frame. And let's try it out. So we have our hover effect working. We click. We can type into the field. And we can hit enter to commit. We can actually hit the tab button to come back in. We can add something to it. We can hit that again. We can click into it to add more. Let's go ahead and clear that out. And the escape button works. And finally just tabbing right into it too. Alright, so everything's working. Now that our user input fields are working, we're going to duplicate a set to become our password fields. You will need one unique set of inputs for each data point your form is going to control. So let's grab the text field from our duplicate. We're going to remove the username variable and change it to password. And on the password value field, we're going to do the same thing. Remove username and set password. And again, I worked ahead here, so I have all of these variables being set by the keyboard, but I'm changing the password variable instead of the username. Before we finish up, let's create a quick button. So type T on your keyboard for the text tool. Type in login. Let's Shift A to auto layout with 10 padding. Let's go ahead and set its width to 236, which is the same width as our input fields. It's 44 tall, so let's round the corners at 22. Let's give it a fill, and let's make that fill 1667 E1. Let's call that button default. Let's duplicate it, rename it hover, and let's change its background color to 0444C0. Make a quick component set, call it button, switch to prototype, and let's connect this button to this one while hovering. We can do a simple dissolve at 300 milliseconds. It's finally time to put all the elements together. So here's the design of my login screen. I have a graphic here to slide up and down once we log in. Let's option drag an instance of our username out. Our password. And an instance of our button. I'm going to put 20 between my two text fields. I'm going to put 40 between those and the button. Looks like it's already there. Okay. I'm going to change the labels to username, password. I'm going to grab all of those and send them to back. This is so this will cover them up as it animates down. Now let's duplicate this frame. I'm going to take these fields and I'm going to hide them. And I'm going to slide this down to the bottom. Now duplicate that again. Slide our graphic back up. Let's grab our text over here and drop it into our layout. Let's also send that to back. So it's behind this as well. Now switch to prototype. going to grab our login button, connect it to our second frame. On click, Smart Animate, ease in and out at 500 milliseconds. We're going to grab our second frame, connect it to the third. This is going to animate after a 400 millisecond delay. Smart Animate, ease in and out 500 milliseconds as well. Let's try it out. Note here that I actually set the variables to be asterisks instead of the actual corresponding keys. That way it emulates those characters being hidden. Let's see it again. Looks great. Before we go, let's take a look at another material design style. Select T for the text tool. Let's type label again. Now let's Shift A for auto layout, but let's set the padding to 0. Let's name this frame label. And then let's grab it and Shift A for auto layout again. Let's set the padding for 15, left aligned. Let's go ahead and set the width at 236 as before, and let's give it a fill. Let's grab our text, set it to our gray color, and let's make a border the same color. Let's round the corners to 4, and let's call this default. Now duplicate that. Let's set this to hover. Let's make the hover color EC, EC, EC. Let's duplicate that again. Let's change that background color back to white. Let's undo the auto layout on the larger piece. Let's change our font down to 11/17. Let's make its color our purple color of 6221EA, and let's change the border color to that same color and increase it to 2. Let's increase our left and right padding to 6 on that label. Let's give it a fill. And then let's move that up to -8 and over to 9. Let's call this our input. Now type the T key again. Let's make input text. Let's make this 16/19. Let's do our 626262 color again. Let's grab our flashing cursor. Let's put those in an auto layout. One in between. And let's drop that into this frame at 15 and 17. Let's grab all those, make a component set. Let's switch to prototype. Let's set this one to the hover. Smart Animate, ease in and out at 300 while hovering. Let's do the same on this one, only with a click. And just for the sake of this exercise, we're going to use on click to put it back. Now let's draw a frame to test this. Drag out an instance. And let's see what we have. And there's another style from Material Design. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found this useful. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to be alerted to future content like this. I'll see you for plenty more lessons real soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.